Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Engel. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a History 111 student under Professor Christopher Sleeper, and I just want to start off this presentation by giving him a quick thank you, not only for supporting me throughout this research journey, but also the past 3 research projects I've done in the course of my 2 years here at MiraCosta. Although this is my 4th and final Omni presentation, I'm very excited to be presenting to you an extremely important topic in American society, and that is wealth and income inequality. I hope you enjoy and I hope you learn something. The wealthiest 85 people on Earth possess more wealth than the 3.5 billion poorest people's combined wealth. Many of these 85 titans hold at least one cushy estate in the alluring county of Los Angeles. Within the same county, however, 1.3 million people are living below the poverty line, 1.1 million people live without health insurance, and over 66,000 people are living on the streets. Los Angeles County epitomizes America's drastic divide between the idolized and affluent few and the struggling plenty. This research project will expound upon the vast reports of wealth and income inequality in Los Angeles County. The difference between wealth and income inequality is that income inequality concerns the yearly household salary and wages combined, while wealth inequality involves the monetary worth of a household's assets. This project will subsequently analyze some of the contributing factors to the rampantly growing disparities in recent decades. Through the lenses of home ownership statistics and incarceration rates in Los Angeles County, this project explores how racism and dwindling opportunities for economic mobility perpetuate this wealth and income inequality. As the 5th most diverse county in the United States, this project considers how race and wealth inequalities cyclically relate to one another. Income and wealth inequality amongst the Los Angeles community is a swelling issue attributed to the ramifications of long-lasting systemic racism, restricting equitable opportunities for economic mobility. In this presentation, I will be comparing 2 different Los Angeles neighborhoods that are commonly known. We've got Bel Air and Compton. Bel Air residents have a median income of $207,938, while Compton residents have a median income of $43,157. Furthermore, 85% of Bel Air residents are homeowners, so they own their homes, and virtually no violent crimes are reported in their neighborhood. In a stark comparison, only 57% of Compton residents own their homes, and this area is rated one of the highest in the country for violent crime. As the cost of living in the United States, and especially in counties like Los Angeles, rises, the median yearly income remains stagnant. Los Angeles County's median yearly income in 2018 was $62,474, while the rest of the country's median income was $64,324. Los Angeles's cost of living, however, is 43% higher than the rest of the country's. Not only are many Los Angeles bearing the brunt of dismal wages compiled with outrageous costs of living, these residents are also more likely to feel poor in comparison to their Bel Air neighbors. These areas within Los Angeles County are not just segregated by homeownership and incarceration rates, but also indicatively by race. When comparing the racial compositions of Bel Air and Compton, for example, 83% of the Bel Air community is white, while Compton residents are 56.7% Latinx and 39.8% African American. Although legislation passed long ago outlawing racial segregation, the County of Los Angeles evidently continues to suffer from de facto segregation. De facto segregation can be defined as racial, ethnic, or other segregation resulting from societal differences between groups, as socioeconomic or political disparity without institutionalized legislation intended to segregate. Although racial wage gaps have gradually improved throughout history, it is unfortunately not strictly a practice from the past. For every dollar a white man makes, an equally qualified African American woman makes 97 cents, while an equally qualified African American man makes 98 cents to that dollar. And this is in 2020, so there's still a disparity here. Meanwhile, and this is honestly the most jarring statistic to me, the racial wealth gap has only grown since the Great Recession. In 2008, white households had a net worth 10 times that of an African American household. In 2013, this gap expanded as white households had a net worth of an average of 13 times that of an average African American household. For decades, the American dream has often entailed owning a home to fill with loved ones and memories. Aside from home ownership epitomizing the materiality of the American dream, real estate is actually the largest driver of wealth accumulation for families in America. However, this dream has disproportionately excluded families of color. In a study conducted in Los Angeles County, 64.4% of white households are homeowners, compared to just 54% of Asian American households are homeowners, and then 41.1% of Hispanic households, and just 32.7% of Black households are homeowners. And that means the rest of the people in that percentage are renting their home. This disparity in Los Angeles residents reflects how minority communities on average allocate more of their income to liabilities, which is their rent, compared to the majority of white people, that 64.4% of white people, and are investing their income back into their overall equity. Folks rent because it is often the cheaper option than making mortgage payments. However, this cost-saving strategy is obviously short-sighted because in the long run, renters don't own anything. They're not owning any assets at the end of it. Low-income households struggle to make ends meet and are obviously less likely to have any substantial savings, while higher-income households not only have the ability to portion out a side of their income to save, but their mortgage payments also increase their equity value. This is striking as the average homeowner's income is 36 times that of the average renter. This makes it all the more troubling that minorities are less likely to own homes. As the wealth of white homeowners accumulates and is passed down through generations, folks belonging to historically marginalized communities struggle to even enter into the wealth holding threshold, even as they achieve higher education and other modes of economic and social mobility. In the United States, excuse me. Despite earning more education, people of color are often faced with the lingering effects of redlining. Redlining can be described as a legal discriminatory practice in which a mortgage lender denies loans or an insurance provider restricts services to certain areas of a community, often because of the racial characteristics of the applicant's neighborhood. Although this practice has long been outlawed, the remnants of the government deeming specific neighborhoods, predominantly communities of color, dangerous and more likely to default on mortgage payments, have perpetuated systemic racism in Los Angeles County. Very little has been done to equitably redress these harms. Thus, redline neighborhoods in Los Angeles, from Franklin Roosevelt, who was a president in 1930, he made these redlining plans using the Homeowners Loan Corporation maps. From the 1930s, keep that in mind, these areas that are redlined continue to have far fewer homeowners, and they tend to have more social problems like crime and homelessness on statistics. So there are still lingering effects of redlining. In the United States, 1 in 3 African American men and 1 in 6 Hispanic men have or will see the inside of a prison cell at least once in their lifetime. Meanwhile, only 1 in 16 white men will ever go to prison. Los Angeles, known for its vast diversity, is also home to the largest jail system in the country. The racial demographic for Los Angeles County's jail population in 2019 was 53% Hispanic, 29% African American, and 15% white. African Americans made up an overly disproportionate share of the jail population as compared to their overall proportion of the overall county population, which is 8%. To be clear, this disproportionate representation is not unique to Los Angeles County and is seen in jail populations across the nation. Not only are men from historically oppressed communities disproportionately arrested and stripped from familial and community structures, but they also face extremely harsh consequences when integrating back into their communities. There are approximately 40,000 indirect consequences of a criminal conviction on someone's record. These challenges not only make it difficult for formerly incarcerated people to reintegrate, but also increases their likelihood of resorting back to crime. Because African Americans are disproportionately impacted by the mass incarceration system, this community, in conjunction, also faces higher recidivism rates. 42% of people arrested 3 or more times in a year were Black. Black Americans are overrepresented among people who were arrested in 2017. Despite only making up 13% of the general population, Black men and women account for 21% of people who are arrested just once in a year and 28% of people who are arrested multiple times in 2017. Residential segregation due to redlining, compounded with the lack of wealth in many African American communities, contributes to the statistic that about half of people arrested at least twice in a year had incomes of less than $10,000, while 85% of those arrested twice in a year had incomes of less than $20,000. Thus, people living in poverty are much more likely to be involved in crime. This increased likelihood prevents economic mobility, as a criminal record permanently casts people into a second class citizenship. Belonging to this caste impedes their ability to apply for a job, access public services, or even take care of their own children. People of color have been disproportionately impacted by both poverty and the mass incarceration system, which have in concert exacerbated this vicious cycle of wealth and income inequality in Los Angeles County. Economic mobility is inordinately stacked against historically marginalized communities due to a long lasting practice of systemic racism using modes such as de facto segregation, redlining, and mass incarceration. These practices contribute to the stark disparities between neighborhoods and within Los Angeles County. The statistics of these Los Angeles neighborhoods demonstrate how people of color own drastically less wealth and are more often cast into this second class citizenship due to incarceration. These two products of systemic racism combined force these citizens to have fewer stakes in American society, and as a result of that, fewer stakes in American politics. Society accepts these disparities because income and wealth inequalities are naturally imminent byproducts of a capitalist society. Minority communities have historically suffered the most from this acceptance, and the United States government has perpetually refrained from any serious, robust intervention. Intervention for communities enduring the abhorrent underbelly of capitalism does not rob society of the American dream or the American work ethic. Rather, it lifts those intergenerationally suffering the most to an equitable and deserving starting point. Thank you so much.